When Dr. Mansfield fixed his gaze on me and said, "Your meals are being laced with powerful drugs on purpose," it felt like my whole world shattered and rebuilt in an instant. For months, I had been stumbling, lightheaded, forgetting things, while my own children told me I was going crazy. Sitting in that spotless office, I understood the truth. The very ones I had given my life to were slowly poisoning me to speed up their inheritance. They wanted me broken and helpless. Instead, they ran into a former soldier who still remembered how cold and relentless he could be when a mission demanded it. How I carry out this mission will leave you stunned. Before we continue, please subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. The waiting room in the clinic carried that usual sterile hum when Claire rested a hand on my shoulder. "Dad, are you all right? You look kind of pale," she asked, her voice soft with concern. Tyler glanced up from his phone, quickly tucking it away. "Pop, if you are not feeling well, we can push this visit to another day." A warmth spread through me. At 74, it meant something to have children who would cross the whole city just to sit with their old man at a doctor's appointment. "You really did not need to come," I told them, though inside I was grateful. These spells had been hitting harder lately. "Of course we did," Claire laughed, that same bright laugh I had cherished since she was a little girl. "We are not letting you do this by yourself. You drove me to every practice, every soccer game. You even worked extra hours so I could have those pricey cleats I swore I needed." Tyler leaned forward, nodding. "And all those years you covered my rent during that unpaid internship, kept me in school, made sure I got through. We will always be here for you, Dad." Their words wrapped around me like comfort I had been missing. For months, I had battled strange spells, dizzy spells that sent me into walls, moments of blank confusion where I forgot conversations right after they happened, trembling hands that made a cup of coffee feel like a hazard. The doctors kept running tests, but every result came back clean. "At your age, Mr. Brennan, these matters can be complicated," Dr. Whitman had told me at my last visit. "We cannot make conclusions without stronger evidence." In plain words, they had no clue what was wrong and would not admit it. The incidents were getting worse, sharper. Just yesterday, I had stood in my kitchen for 15 minutes, blank on why I went in there at all. Claire had found me, eased me into a chair, and made me tea with honey, just the way I used to do when she was sick. "Mr. Brennan?" Dr. Mansfield's voice broke into my thoughts. He stood at his office doorway, his look calm but edged with urgency. "Could I speak with you privately for a moment?" I pushed to my feet, and both kids reached out to steady me. "We will come with you, Dad," Claire said. Dr. Mansfield shook his head firmly. "I am sorry, but I need to see him alone first. It will only take a few minutes." The short walk to his office felt like a mile, my legs unsteady. He closed the door carefully, then faced me with the same look I remembered from military briefings, when news was about to change everything. He leaned forward, dropping his voice to a whisper. "Mr. Brennan, I need you to pay close attention. Your blood results show strong traces of benzodiazepine and other sedatives, high levels, but you are not prescribed any of these medications." I clenched the arms of the chair. "What exactly are you saying?" "Someone has been secretly tampering with your meals, slipping in medication you were never prescribed. The dizziness, the memory lapses, the disorientation, they are not natural. They have been forced on you." He paused, letting the words settle. "Mr. Brennan, someone has been deliberately lacing your food with sedatives." The room tilted for a moment, and I gripped the chair to steady myself. "Doctor, that cannot be right. I live with my kids. Claire handles nearly all the cooking. She is so attentive, always making sure I eat well, and if she is busy with work, Tyler jumps in. They look after everything." Dr. Mansfield's face stayed serious. "I know this is difficult to accept, but the tests are clear. The medications we found match what we see when someone is being given sedatives on purpose. The levels are too high, too steady, for this to be an accident." My old military habits kicked in. Study the evidence, challenge assumptions, but never dismiss intelligence just because it is uncomfortable. "You are absolutely sure? No possibility of mix-ups in the lab? No contamination in the samples?" "We triple-checked. 3 separate labs. Mr. Brennan, the only way this pattern shows up is if someone with regular access to your food is adding it deliberately." He leaned back, watching me carefully. I know it is painful to even think about, especially when it involves people close to you. My thoughts raced over the last few months. Claire's soups on the nights I felt sick, Tyler carrying coffee up to me on weekend mornings, their worried looks when I stumbled or forgot my words, the way they shared quick glances during my episodes, covering them with concern the second I noticed. If this is really happening, I said slowly, how do I stop it? What does recovery look like? Dr. Mansfield pulled out a notepad. The first step is cutting off the source. You need to prepare your own meals. Drink only sealed beverages that you open yourself. The good news is these sedatives will flush out within a week and a half, maybe 10 days once you stop taking them in. Your symptoms should fade quickly. He handed me the sheet with instructions. But Mr. Brennan, if this is intentional, be cautious. Keep records. Think about contacting the authorities. I slid the paper into my jacket pocket. 28 years in military intelligence had drilled one lesson into me. Never show your hand until you understand the full operation. Doctor, I would rather look into this myself first, get a clear picture before I make accusations. Of course, he said, but please be careful. And if anything worsens or you feel unsafe, call emergency services immediately. Heading back to the waiting room, I felt like I was walking through fog, but not the same haze that had clouded my mind for months. This was the fog of a mission that needed assessment. I had to watch, test, confirm what seemed unthinkable. Claire rushed to me as soon as I stepped out. Dad, how did it go? You look upset. Tyler stood next to her, both of them wearing faces of deep concern. Yeah, Pop. Did Dr. Mansfield finally figure it out? Do they know what is wrong with them? Really looked. And for the first time in months, I felt sharp, even with the sedative still in my system. He said it is still unclear. Wants to run more tests in 10 days. Symptoms may get worse before they get better. I studied their reactions. Did Claire's eyes flash with something that was not concern? Did Tyler's posture loosen, like a small weight had been lifted? Oh, Dad, Claire said, holding my arm. Do not worry. I will take even better care of you. Make sure you are eating right, getting your vitamins. That is right, Tyler added. We are not going anywhere. We will get through this as a family. As we walked to the car, my mind clicked into operational mode. For the first time in months, I had a clear mission. And like every operation I had ever led, it would take patience, close observation, and precise execution. They believed they were looking after a fading old man. In truth, they were now being watched by someone who had spent a lifetime identifying and dismantling threats. The rules had shifted. They just did not know it yet. That first morning back in my own house, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. My hands shook, not from sedatives this time, but from raw fury mixed with disbelief. How do you even process the thought that your own children are quietly slipping medication into your food? The oatmeal Claire set down looked harmless, the same as always. Simple, wholesome. Extra blueberries today, Dad. They are great for memory, she said with the same warm smile that had tricked me for months. Thanks, sweetheart. The words felt bitter as I forced them out. I ate a few spoonfuls under her watchful eye, praising her cooking. The second she left the room, I rushed into the bathroom and made myself throw it up. Hardly the kind of precise tactics I had been trained for, but when you are desperate, you improvise. The coffee was trickier. Tyler liked to sit with me while I drank it, chatting about work, asking casual questions. I had to act creative, spill some by accident, claim I was already full, save half for later. He seemed satisfied that I was sipping slowly. Of course he was. My first sweep of the house was a disaster. Nerves got the best of me, and I barely got through Claire's dresser drawers before hearing her car in the driveway. My heart pounded like I was back in basic training, stumbling through a night drill. Some intelligence officer I was proving to be. It took 3 more days before I found the evidence, hidden in her bathroom. I had knocked over a bottle of moisturizer, and when it rolled behind the cabinet, I spotted a prescription tucked away. Rita Coleman. I had never heard the name, but the label hit me like a punch. Lorazepam. Medication for anxiety, easy to crush, easy to stir into food. Tyler's room held something worse. Research notes. Articles printed and marked up, inheritance laws highlighted, scribbled reminders about proving mental incompetence. My own son, the one I put through business school, the one who used to call me for advice on everything. He was studying how to take my life apart legally. But what I overheard one night nearly broke me. I had gone upstairs early, pretending to be worn out, just another act in my daily performance. At the top of the stairs, something made me pause. Maybe instinct, maybe paranoia. I crouched down, straining to hear their voices from the living room below. "I am so sick of this charade," Claire snapped, her voice sharp with venom. That tone did not belong to the little girl who once fell asleep on my chest during movie nights. "I know." And the way he stares at us with those grateful eyes every time we hand him a plate makes me want to puke. Tyler laughed, cold and foreign. My grip on the banister here kept me from collapsing right there. These were my children. Mine. 4 months, Claire went on. The lawyer said we need 4 months of steady decline before we can file. Honestly, I do not think I can keep up this act that long. The doses are hitting him harder now, Tyler replied. Did you see him yesterday, searching for his glasses when they were sitting right on his head? Maybe we can move things along faster. 4 months. They had a schedule, a strategy. And me? I was just a barrier to clear, a paycheck to claim. When Claire started talking about the downtown condo and my life insurance, something in me went still and cold. That was the moment grief turned into something sharper. I was no longer a broken father. I became something else entirely. I made it back to my room before the tears came. 28 years of service in the military, and I sat on my bed weeping like an old man who had lost everything. I had not cried like that since burying my wife 12 years ago. Maybe it was the emotional strain, maybe the last traces of those sedatives still working through me. But by dawn, the tears had hardened into resolve. They wanted to run their little operation on their father? Fine. But they had overlooked one crucial fact. I was not only a soldier. I was trained in intelligence, and I had been very, very good at my job. When the last traces of those sedatives cleared out of my body, it felt like swapping a broken radio for a brand new television. Every sight sharper, every sound crisp, and with that clarity, my next steps became obvious. But pure rage without proof, that was useless. I needed evidence that would stand up in a courtroom, something that could tear down their scheme brick by brick. This was not about shouting or confronting them at the dinner table. It was about dismantling their plan with precision. The first move I made was to collect samples. Every plate of food they placed in front of me, every cup of coffee, every so-called vitamin smoothie, Claire insisted would help me heal. I would swallow just enough to keep them calm, then quietly set aside portions in small containers I had picked up on a trip to the pharmacy. Each one felt like a bullet in a rifle, ammunition I would need for the war they had unknowingly started. Dr. Mansfield sounded hesitant when I called. Mr. Brennan, I understand, but testing food for criminal cases is not exactly standard procedure. Doctor, I cut in, steady and firm, the way I used to brief my men before missions. Someone is deliberately tampering with what I eat in my own home. I need evidence that is official, that will hold up in front of a judge. No speculation, no guesswork, solid proof. There was silence on the line, stretched tight as a tripwire. When he finally answered, his voice had lost its hesitation. If these results come back the way I expect, law enforcement will need to be involved immediately. Soon, doctor, but not yet. First, I need every piece of this puzzle in place. I felt like a sniper adjusting his scope. Patience mattered more than speed. Next, I needed backup. Not from the police, not from agencies with paperwork and red tape. I needed the kind of men who had bled with me in places most people could not find on a map. I called Eddie Knox first, my old sergeant major. He answered before the second ring. Brennan, you old bastard. His laugh was like hearing home again after years away. What mess did you drag yourself into now? My throat tightened, maybe the last of those sedatives messing with me, maybe just the weight of betrayal. The kind of mess where blood ties stop meaning anything, Eddie. I need help, surveillance, evidence. Off the record. The line went silent. I knew that silence. That was Eddie calculating, weighing threat levels the same way he used to before we kicked down doors overseas. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the same iron I remembered. What do you need? Eyes on the house when I am not there. Someone who can document everything without being noticed, and someone who can make sure nothing disappears if things turn bad. Done. He did not ask why. He did not need to. Karl Voss lives 45 minutes from you. Retired, restless, itching for something to do. He will jump on this. The second call was to Danny Park, our old comm specialist. I laid out what I needed: cameras, recording gear, equipment that left no paper trail. How deep does this go? Danny asked, his tone heavy. He had seen too many missions spiral out of control not to question it. Life or death deep. The words burned as I said them, admitting just how far things had gone. Jesus, Brennan. He let out a sharp breath. I will have a package on your doorstep tomorrow, clean, no trace. And Brennan, watch your back. The last call was the hardest. Kenneth Rhodes, my lawyer and once a fellow soldier. When his voice came on the line, it was like finding water in a desert. Kenneth, I need to change my estate. Major revisions. And I need them airtight, untouchable. Of course. When do you want to come in? His professional calm barely covered the concern in his tone. Tonight after hours. And Kenneth, it has to stay between us until I give the word. It felt like I was calling an airstrike on my own coordinates. That evening, in his office with the blinds drawn, I laid everything on the table: the test results, the conversations I had overheard, the steady attempts to break me down. With every detail, Kenneth's face darkened like a storm building overhead. My God, Brennan, your own children. His lawyer's mask cracked, showing the soldier underneath. The words felt like swallowing nails. I want them erased from the will. Everything goes to the veteran community: housing, medical programs, scholarships, and I want it ironclad. No loopholes. No way to fight it, no matter what happens to me. Kenneth's pen moved fast across his pad, each stroke deliberate. I will make sure no attorney in the country can touch it. But Brennan, if this is real, you cannot keep it quiet forever. The police will need to be brought in. I will. But first, I want them to feel the weight of their loss. I want them to see clearly how completely they have wrecked their own futures. I leaned forward, that old predator inside me rising after months of acting like prey. They thought they were outsmarting a frail old man. I am about to show them what happens when you bring a pocket knife to a battlefield. 5 days later, Dr. Mansfield called, and it felt exactly like the enemy contact I had been waiting for. His voice was steady, clipped. The tone of a man delivering hard news with military precision. Mr. Brennan, every single sample came back positive for lorazepam and zolpidem, levels high enough to cause serious mental impairment and steady enough to prove intentional tampering. My fists tightened, muscle memory from years of controlling anger under impossible conditions. Will this hold up in court? Without question. The chain of custody is clean, the lab's certified, and the evidence is airtight. His words carried certainty like steel. By law, I am required to notify law enforcement immediately. Not yet, doctor. Give me 1 week. I need to make sure they cannot cover their tracks or vanish before the blow lands. I felt like a sniper with his target framed in the scope, finger resting on the trigger, waiting for that one perfect moment. That night, I sat in my study, the very room where I had once helped both kids with their homework, and drew up the final parts of my plan. The irony was sharp. I had taught them how to think ahead, weigh options, consider consequences. Now they were about to learn what happens when the students try to match wits with the teacher. Phase 1 was finished. I had proof, legal security, and trusted allies. Phase 2 promised to be far more satisfying. They believed they were stalking me, but hunters never realize they have become the hunted, at least not until the trap slams shut. And I was ready to spring the deadliest trap of their lives. Karl Voss showed up on a Wednesday morning looking exactly the part he was supposed to play, a retired Special Forces man now passing himself off as a handyman. His cover was flawless. He was there to help me with home repairs while I recovered from health problems. Claire and Tyler accepted the story right away, probably even relieved that someone else had taken on part of the burden of caring for their father. What they never realized was that within an hour, Karl had laced the house with surveillance. Tiny cameras hidden in smoke detectors, inside picture frames, even in the coffee maker. Every room except the bathrooms was now under constant watch, with the feeds going straight to a secure server Kenneth was monitoring from his office. "Your kids are sloppy," Karl whispered while we pretended to check the kitchen cabinets. "The girl doesn't even bother hiding it. Yesterday, she crushed up pills right there on the counter and stirred them into your soup like she was adding salt. The words landed like a physical strike. In combat, you expect the enemy to try and kill you. But watching your own daughter poison food with the same practiced care she once used to frost your birthday cakes, that was a wound no battlefield could prepare you for. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Package confirmed, all documentation secure, ready for next phase. T. Danny's equipment had arrived, and every moment in that house was now being recorded and stored in multiple safe locations. Later that afternoon, Claire brought me her usual healing smoothie, a blend she swore would help my memory and balance. She stood by, watching intently as I raised the glass to my lips, her eyes locked on me in a way that made my skin crawl. "This one tastes different," I said, lowering the glass a little, "sweeter than the others." Her smile was pleasant, but her eyes stayed cold. "I added honey. You've seemed so tired lately. I thought the natural sugar would give you a boost." What she had really added, Carl's footage showed, was a double dose of crushed zolpidem. "You're so thoughtful," I replied, pretending to take another sip. We were both lying through our teeth like actors reading from a script neither of us wanted to admit existed. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Don't worry, Dad. I'll always take care of you." Her words dripped with sweetness, but the look in her eyes was all calculation, like a predator sizing up its prey. That evening, Tyler suggested a movie night the way we used to do when they were kids. He chose Heat, a choice I couldn't help but notice, probably his idea of a private joke. While he thought I was slowly unraveling under the weight of their plan, I was recording every minute through Danny's hidden devices. "You know, Pop," Tyler said during a particularly violent scene. "Life's strange. Sometimes the ones you trust the most are the ones who stab you in the back." I studied him, and what I saw wasn't my son anymore, just a stranger wearing his face. "That's true," I answered quietly. "But betrayal has a way of circling back. People who think they're clever usually end up learning they weren't as smart as they thought." For a brief second, something shifted in his eyes. Maybe doubt, maybe fear, but he buried it quickly under that same mask of false concern. By Monday, I had evidence strong enough to put both of them away for attempted murder. But that wasn't enough. Not yet. They had been patient, running a long con on my life. Now it was their turn to feel what it meant to lose slowly, piece by piece. I started small. The Wi-Fi stopped working, forcing them to burn through data on their phones. The hot water heater developed an issue that Carl was conveniently struggling to diagnose. Little frustrations that stacked up until everything felt like friction. Then I moved into psychological warfare. I began forgetting things on purpose, but not the things they expected. I'd misplace my reading glasses, but suddenly recall exact details from their childhood. I'd forget what day it was, but remember, down to the penny, the tuition I paid for their college years. "Dad, do you remember what you had for breakfast?" Claire asked one morning. Her voice dipped in that fake, caring, patronizing tone. "Toast with marmalade," I answered smoothly, though she had given me oatmeal. Then I smiled faintly. "But it reminded me of when you were 9 and you brought me breakfast in bed for Father's Day. Burned pancakes. You were so proud of them." I let myself chuckle at the memory, then let the smile fade, putting on a look of uncertainty. Or was that Tyler? My memory isn't what it used to be. I studied her face closely. For just an instant, something real slipped through. Maybe guilt, maybe even a trace of the girl who once loved her father. But it vanished almost as quickly as it appeared, replaced by tight irritation. The unpredictability of my condition was bothering her more than any steady decline would have. Later that night, their voices drifted up from the living room. Low at first, but sharp enough for me to catch every word. "This isn't happening fast enough," Claire snapped. "We need to raise the doses again." "What if we go too far? What if something permanent happens?" Tyler sounded nervous. His tone, breaking the way it had when he was a teenager, caught sneaking out after curfew. "Would that really be such a tragedy?" Claire's voice carried a cold edge. "No more waiting, no more pretending. Problem solved, and we can finally move on with our lives." My grip on the stair railing tightened until my knuckles turned white. They weren't just trying to weaken me anymore. They were entertaining permanent solutions. and the casual way Claire suggested it cut deeper than any blade. Ice slid through my veins as I listened. These were my children, and they were calmly plotting how to erase me. By morning, my course was set. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Detective Stone, this is Walter Brennan. I need to discuss something sensitive, something involving family. Rachel Stone, Eddie's daughter. She had her father's instincts. Her voice sharpened immediately. What kind of family situation, Mr. Brennan? The kind where attempted murder collides with inheritance fraud. Can we meet somewhere private? And Rachel, this conversation never happened unless I give the word. When I hung up, I noticed something inside me had shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns hot, blinds you, makes you sloppy. I didn't have room for that. What I felt now was colder, steadier, the focused resolve of a soldier who has identified his target and is ready to finish the mission. They had reminded me of one harsh truth. Sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones most willing to destroy you. But they had overlooked a truth even harsher. I had spent 28 years learning how to dismantle enemies who thought they had the upper hand. And I hadn't lost my touch. The reckoning came on a Friday morning, exactly 2 weeks after my meeting with Dr. Mansfield. I sat at the breakfast table calm on the outside while Claire prepared what she thought would be just another serving of my slow decline. Tyler sat across from me, scrolling on his phone, no doubt checking balances and daydreaming about the inheritance that wasn't coming. When Claire set the bowl of oatmeal in front of me, I pushed it aside. I am not hungry, I said quietly. Her mask slipped for a second before she caught it. Dad, you need to eat. The doctor said keeping up with nutrition is important for your recovery. Her voice carried the same forced concern, but the edge underneath told me everything. She needed me to swallow that oatmeal. Which doctor, Claire? I asked, looking up at her with eyes sharper than she had seen in months. Dr. Mansfield? The one who told me someone has been slipping medication into my meals for half a year. The spoon clattered out of her hand and hit the counter. Tyler froze mid-scroll, his thumb hanging above the screen. Dad, what are you talking about? She asked. Steady voice, pale face. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a thick folder, laying it on the table slowly, like setting down evidence at a trial. Lab reports. Every meal, every smoothie, every coffee you've handed me for the last 4 weeks, all testing positive for lorazepam and zolpidem. I flipped it open, showing page after page of stamped documents. Enough sedatives to put down an elephant, let alone your confused old man. Tyler pushed back from the table, halfway to his feet, until one look from me made him sink right back into his chair. This is insane. Why would we ever... For the inheritance, son. The word burned in my mouth. And I'll give you this. You did your homework well. That article in your desk, how long does it take to establish cognitive decline for legal purposes? Very thorough. Claire's mask cracked completely. You went through our things? You had no right? I had no right? My voice dropped into the same cold tone I'd used in interrogation tents overseas. I had no right to investigate why I was losing my mind in my own house, why my own children stood by, watching me stumble like a broken puppet, pretending to care. The silence stretched, heavy as a battlefield before the shooting starts. They were calculating, trying to decide if there was still a way to claw back control. I heard you, I continued, voice steady, anger held tight on a leash, talking about how tired you were of pretending, talking about raising the doses, talking about permanent solutions. Tyler's hands trembled against the table. Dad, if you would just let us explain. Explain what? I leaned forward, studying their faces as if they were enemy dossiers. Explain how you convinced me to let you move in under the lie of caring for your aging father. Explain how you studied the exact sedatives that would keep me weak and confused. Or maybe explain how you debated whether it would really be so terrible if something permanent happened to me. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but I'd seen that act too many times before. Crocodile tears never moved me. You don't understand, she whispered. The pressure we've been under. Tyler has debts, and I've been drowning trying to keep the business alive. So your solution was to poison your father until he was legally incompetent? To steal the life I built? I rose to my feet, slowly, deliberately. 74 years in my body, but in that moment, I felt sharper, more dangerous than I had since leaving the service. Here's what I do not understand. What exactly did I do wrong? They stared at me, caught off guard. For the first time in this long war, it was my turn to watch them struggle for answers. Seriously, I pressed on, my voice breaking despite every ounce of discipline I tried to hold. What did I do as a father that made you believe you couldn't just ask me for help? When have I ever turned you away? When have I ever made you feel like you couldn't bring your problems to me? That was when Tyler's composure collapsed. His tears came raw this time, not calculated. Dad, we just thought. You thought what? That I'd judge you? That I'd give you a lecture about being responsible? My throat burned, my own eyes stinging. Maybe remnants of those sedatives still, maybe just the truth finally breaking through. Tyler, when you were 11 and broke Mrs. Gallagher's window with a baseball, who covered the cost? When you wrecked my car in college, who paid the repairs and never said a word? When your business idea went under, who handed you money without demanding answers? We know, Dad, and you, Claire. I turned to her, though it felt like staring at a stranger wearing my daughter's face. When you wanted to quit that miserable job and launch your own business, who scraped together the startup money? When you needed a co-signer for your apartment, who signed the papers? When you called me in tears because that man betrayed you, who drove 4 hours just to sit with you, bring you ice cream, and let you cry until you fell asleep. She couldn't meet my eyes. Her voice came small, almost childlike. Daddy, we never meant for it to go this far. We just needed. You needed what? More money? All you had to do was ask? Love? You already had every ounce of it I could give. Respect? I've been proud of both of you every single day, even when you failed. My voice rose, sharper than it had been in years. 28 years of iron discipline splintering. So explain to me, what did I do that made you think the answer was to slowly poison your father into incompetence so you could strip away everything he worked for? The kitchen went dead quiet, except for Tyler's quiet sobbing. Claire stared down at her trembling hands, tears dripping onto the table. She began, then faltered. We thought it would be easier than... Easier than what? Than telling the truth? Than treating me like a man instead of an obstacle? Than disappointing you again, Tyler whispered, so faint it nearly vanished under his tears. Something tore inside my chest then, not fury, not hate, but something heavier. The grief of a father realizing that his love hadn't been enough. Son, I said softly, the only way you could ever disappoint me is by proving you thought so little of me, and so little of yourselves that you chose betrayal over honesty, that you chose this. That was when the sound of engines filled the driveway. Car doors slammed, heavy footsteps on the porch. I looked at them. My children, my poisoners, the two people I had loved more than life itself, and felt something cold settle deep inside me, final and unshakable. That will be Detective Stone and her team, I said evenly. I called them this morning. They have everything, the lab work, the recordings, the footage of you preparing my food. I rose from the table as the doorbell rang, followed by urgent pounding. I wanted to ask you that question first. I needed to know what I had done wrong before they took you away. The pounding grew louder. Police! Open the door! Claire's face twisted, caught between desperation and fury. Dad, please, you can't do this. We're your children. I walked to the front door, paused, and turned back one last time. No, I said quietly. My children would never have plotted to poison their father. I don't know who you people are. A month later, I sit on my back porch as the sun lifts over the mountains, turning the ridges gold. There's a mug of coffee in my hands. Coffee I brewed myself in a kitchen that belongs only to me. The silence here isn't heavy anymore. It's not the suffocating quiet of a house poisoned by lies. It's the calm of a man who finally knows where he stands. The arraignment came fast and hit hard. Bail was denied. The judge called their crime a systematic attempt to erase the mental capacity of a vulnerable family member for financial gain. Tyler broke down in the courtroom, sobbing openly as the charges were read. Claire just sat there, stone-faced, like she still couldn't process the fact that she had been caught. Their attorneys wasted no time reaching out, trying to sniff around for plea deals, hinting that maybe reduced sentences were possible if I showed mercy. I told Kenneth to deliver one message on my behalf. Mr. Brennan believes that attempting to poison someone deserves the full weight of the law, Family ties don't change that. The trial is still months away, but I've already given my testimony. Talking about the symptoms, the dizziness, the fear of losing my mind, that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was answering the prosecutor when he asked how this had changed my relationship with my children. There is no relationship, I said into the camera, my voice steady. The son and daughter I thought I raised, they never truly existed. The people sitting in that courtroom are strangers who happen to share my DNA and my dinner table. I cut off their phone numbers the day after the arrests, changed the house line completely. When their lawyers mentioned they wanted to send me letters from jail, I told Kenneth to return them unopened. Some bridges, once set on fire, should never be crossed again. Meanwhile, the veterans community has been nothing short of extraordinary. The housing initiative funded by my estate is already building its first facility. The scholarship fund has its first batch of applicants. The medical assistance program has already paid for treatments the VA couldn't cover, giving 3 veterans the care they should have had long ago. Every cent my children thought they were owed is now reshaping lives of people who actually earned it. I've started volunteering at the local VA center, helping other veterans find their footing in civilian life. Funny thing, I spent decades saving for my kids, only to realize I feel wealthier now than I ever did. Maybe that's the lesson I was too blind to see. What you give freely with open hands has real value. What's stolen in the dark never does. Eddie Knox drops by most weekends. We sit out here on this porch, sipping coffee and talking about anything but the obvious. Yesterday, he brought his granddaughter along, a bright little girl, maybe 7 years old. The way she looked at him with pure trust and love reminded me of what I'd once had and what I'd lost. "You ever think you'll change your mind?" Eddie asked after she drifted off in the hammock between us. About cutting them off completely? I thought about it a long while, watching the last streaks of gold fade on the mountains. "I think about the kids they used to be," I said at last. But those kids grew up into adults who decided that poisoning their father was easier than talking to him. I can't save the children they once were by excusing the people they've become. The truth is never as clean as we wish it was. There are nights, quiet, empty nights, when the house feels too large and my mind drifts back to softer times. Birthday mornings with wrapping paper scattered across the floor. Christmas trees lit up with laughter in the air. Teaching Tyler how to handle a steering wheel for the first time. Helping Claire practice for her first real job interview. Those memories rise up like ghosts. But they pass quickly, because nostalgia is a luxury I cannot afford for people who chose to slip sedatives into my meals and try to buy my death with my own money. Dr. Mansfield still calls once a week, not so much as a physician anymore, but as a friend. My balance is steady now, my memory sharp, the tremors gone as if they never existed. The body heals fast when it is not under attack, especially when the attack is coming from the very people who should have been your shield. Carl Voss finished the new security system yesterday. Just in case, he said, though both of us knew it was more for my peace of mind than for any real threat. My children sit in jail awaiting trial, abandoned even by the handful of friends they once had. Still, the cameras, the alarms, the reinforced locks, they give me calm. And after what I've lived through, calm is worth more than gold. Life feels different now, stripped down to its essentials. I cook my own food, brew my own coffee, and make decisions without second-guessing if my judgment has been tampered with. I've rediscovered the simple dignity of trusting my own mind. If I misplace my keys these days, it's just human forgetfulness, not a sign of someone quietly stealing my sanity. The lesson I've carried out of this isn't wrapped up in tidy words like trust or forgiveness. It's harsher than that. Some people will take everything you're willing to hand them, and then they'll find a way to take more. The only safeguard you have is the strength to cut them off completely when they cross a line that should never be crossed. My children taught me something I wish I had learned sooner, that love without boundaries isn't really love. It's enabling. And enabling, taken far enough, is nothing more than helping in your own destruction. I miss the kids they used to be. I'll probably always miss them, but I do not miss the adults they turned into, and I've finally accepted that those are not the same people. The sun climbs higher, washing the mountains from gold into their ordinary blue. I drain the last of my coffee and step back into my house. It's quiet, it's safe, and it's mine. Every choice belongs to me, every meal is my own, and every soul I let into my life has earned their place. It's a good life. Not the one I thought I'd have, but the one I chose the moment I learned the difference between being alone and being free. And freedom, I've come to realize, is worth everything you have to surrender in order to claim it. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for watching.